Diversity's Center for Psychiatric Rehabilitation's goal is to connect our viewers with supportive resources in the community and to help individuals enhance their career development and overall well-being. Everyone can be successful with the right support.
In the last ditch, I think of you. In the last ditch, I will be true.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Employment for All. My name is Kimberly Bissett, and I'm here to help you get a job, change jobs, or advance in the job you currently have. The role of our show is to increase the level of knowledge you have to get the right job match for you. And today's show is no exception. We'd like to welcome Robert Emilio. He's the Vice President of Diversity at Dana-Farber. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you very much, Kim. It's good to be here.
Well, we're thrilled to have you.
Thank you.
So let's start off. Let's learn a little bit about you. Tell us about yourself.
Sure, I'd be glad to. Kim, as you mentioned, I'm at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute here in Boston, and I'm the Vice President of Diversity there. I've been there for 3 years. And it's a wonderful job and a wonderful place to work. I also live in Jamaica Plain, where I've been for over 30 years. I live there with my husband, Tim, and my dog, Phoebe.
Oh, very good.
It's important to mention your dog.
Yes, if you don't. I have 2 cats, and when I don't mention their names, you know, Janie and Othello, they...
You can't go home again.
No, exactly. That's very important. They're part of the diversity.
Yes, yes,
They enrich
that's
our
right.
lives. So let's talk a little bit about what is emotional intelligence and diversity.
Emotional intelligence and diversity, we also call it EID for short. It's just easier to say that.
That's the hip term.
The hip term. It's not a new concept. It's been around since the 1950s and 60s, but just in the last 10 years or so, it's really become important in the workplace. Emotional intelligence, first of all, is our ability to understand how my own emotions impact my behavior, and also how your emotions impact your behavior. And then, given that we all work in a diverse world now, how do we handle these emotions? How do we manage them in a diverse setting at work? So in a nutshell, it's really about knowing my emotions, putting them into behavior, and creating a world at work that we all want to work in.
Absolutely. So it's really figuring out who you are and how you interact, and then how do you interact really in a skillful way with other people.
Exactly. Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. So I think this would be a great time to go into, we have a PowerPoint as we do every week at Employment for All, and we kind of do the top 5 do's and don'ts. It kind of crystallize what we're going to talk about here today.
Great.
So we have our PowerPoint up, and we're going to talk about number 1. So number 1 is increase your level of self-awareness. Tell us about that.
Let's start there. The reason we put that first, obviously, is because a lot of us aren't aware of our emotions and how our emotions impact our behavior. When I do seminars at work, I often say to people, okay, how many of you had a feeling today? And then they raise their hand and say, what feeling was it? People go, I don't know. And so the first thing we have to do is understand that we all are creatures that have feelings. We don't leave them at the doorstep when we come into work.
Right.
Be aware of what your feelings are and how you're acting them out with other people.
Absolutely, because you know what impacts you. I talked to a gentleman the other day, and he was like, my mother's very sick. Well, that's going to impact the way he said, I have a shorter fuse at work, and we have to be aware of that. We have to know, okay, this is what's going on at home. I may be different.
Absolutely.
So it's important to know.
Yes.
And number 2 is do manage your emotions.
I think the word manage is really key there. A lot of people think about when I come to work, I have to control my emotions.
Yes, I must be very prim and proper and say
That's right.
exactly the right thing.
There's no place for emotions at work. And that would be great if we were robots, but we're not robots. We're human beings. We're dynamic creatures.
Right.
And so the job is not to control them, which implies don't have them, but understand what they are and then manage your emotion. I'm getting angry now. Okay, what's the best way to express my anger to my boss, to my colleague? How do I manage it?
Right. Like someone might say, I don't like frequent interruptions. And I don't like when someone just comes in and sits down when I'm trying to get things done. Well, how do you express that in the way that it's acceptable in the workplace? You can't yell and scream, but you can communicate that you need to get certain work done in a certain way. So it's helping people, you know, and other people don't mind interruptions. I know people that are like, oh, I expect those, and then I stay later, but some of us can't. And how do we handle that? So it's really learning those different ways. I myself like to come into work really early before everyone else so I can get those critical things done that that people email you like, did you receive that? Did you respond to that? And if the day takes you away, you can't get to those. And I don't love that feeling. So it's finding out how you can work with other people in the context that makes sense.
Absolutely, yes.
So that would be critical. And number 3 is do learn about people's values and their backgrounds.
That is so important. When you think of how much time we all spend in the workplace, on whatever job we have, we're sitting next to people, we're working next to people, we're at a lab bench next to people, and oftentimes we don't know what they value. We kind of make assumptions.
Yes.
It's wonderful to have conversations with people about what are the values you bring into your workplace. Are they respect? Are they discovery? Are they impact? Are they being treated well with each other? Those sorts of things are what we think are important for values and how they impact behavior.
Absolutely, absolutely. And number 4 is do really think about your role in the workplace. How do you play a role in a productive workplace? You know, are you the person that brings everyone down? Are you the person that really mobilizes people together?
Especially people in leadership positions, management and above. I'm a manager. If I come in the morning and the first thing I do is slam my door, I don't say hi to anyone I'm working with,
Right, exactly.
that sends a message.
Yes.
Either, uh-oh, Robert's really angry
walk
today,
on
or
toes.
something's wrong, I can't
Right.
talk to him.
Right.
And so you have to understand and be aware of the presence you're creating at whatever level you are in the organization.
Right, absolutely. Which brings us to number 5. Do talk about diversity in the workplace, because you have to talk about this. You have to figure out where people are at, because you can't assume anything.
Absolutely. One of the things I think is saddest about diversity in the workplace right now is because of people have become so afraid to talk about differences. Many people are worried about, oh, what if I'm not politically correct?
Yes.
What if I step on
Yeah.
someone's toes? So rather than talk about differences and similarities, they say nothing at all.
Right.
And I think what we have to do is get beyond that and say, gee, I'm not sure if this is the right thing to ask you. Let me try.
Exactly, exactly. So it's opening those doors, or asking those open-ended questions, because if you don't know anything about the person, ask that question, maybe a broad question. Who's important to you in your life? It could be your dog, could be your cat, it could be your partner, it could be your wife, it could be your husband. It could be your uncle who's really helped raise you from birth. You know, you just don't know. And asking those questions to open up that dialogue to see, well, who's important to you? That's a great way to kind of open up that dialogue to see, well what do people value?
Absolutely. Another type of diversity to talk about is one you mentioned. Kim, I notice you like to come in early in the morning and not to be disturbed. If I come in early, should I talk with you? Should I just go to my own desk? That's diversity too.
Yes.
Diversity in terms of how we could do our work and how we'd like to get our work done.
Absolutely, and it's learning those skills. I know I work with a lot of different people, and sometimes my interns come in a little earlier, and I ask them, could you come in and say hello to me? And some of them thought they were disturbing me, because they know I come in early, and I said, I really like to know who's here and when, and they work upstairs, so could you come down and say hello in case I have a pressing project, and then you're right on top of mine. And I had one intern who would kind of come to the end of the hall and say, hi Kim, and run the other way. And so I had to say,
Who was that?
Yeah, I know someone was here. So I had to say to her, you know, I really value your presence here, and I like to know when you arrive, and I also, if you go so quickly, I want to be able to share with you what I need done. So come into my office, that's completely okay, and let me know. And I said, if I can't talk to you, I'll certainly let you know. But so it's making those rules, and she said, oh, okay, now I get it. So it's making those expectations clear in a nice way.
Absolutely, yes.
But it is, diversity comes into all kinds of styles and preferences and things like that.
Absolutely, yes.
and
Habits, behaviors.
Exactly,
Sure.
exactly. And people have different things. I am in a job where there's constant interruption, so I could choose to come in early so I can be responsive to those interruptions. But I placed an intern at a situation where the woman really did not want to be interrupted, so we actually created time breaks where her part-time intern could ask questions, and that really helped the flow of the work, because at 1:30 and at 3 were his times to have his time to ask questions. So he would hold his questions, he would write them down for her, and then he would determine, okay, these are the right times to ask them, and it really improved their working relationship because she felt respected and he felt that his needs and questions could be met.
That's an excellent example, I think, of emotional intelligence and diversity at work.
Yeah.
The example you just gave, we may not think about it in terms of emotions, feelings, behaviors, but boy, it's all underneath there.
It is,
That
it's
if this
absolutely.
intern didn't know this woman didn't like being interrupted, who knows what could have happened between them in the workplace.
Exactly, exactly. It could have led to an early termination that didn't need to be. It's kind of learning people's work styles.
Exactly.
So that brings us perfectly into the don'ts. So
Okay.
let's kind of review don'ts of the workplace. What is it critical not to do? So number 1 is don't really think that everyone's the same.
That's right. Don't think that just because I like listening to rock music on my radio at work, everyone else likes that too.
Right.
Don't think just because I like working to 7 p.m. at night, everyone else thinks that too. Don't think just because I like everything lined up in a pile, others like that too.
Yes.
It's important to remember that the more diverse we are in the world of work, the more different styles and variety we have to be open to.
Absolutely. And we have to be respectful. I think live TV is a wonderful, fun, exciting thing. And I've invited people to be on it, and they've said, oh, my schedule is very tight. I can't do anything, blah, blah, blah. And I finally realized that some people don't want to be on live TV. It's not their thing. It's not something they'd enjoy. They'd rather kind of take off their nails than be part of a live show.
Okay. Go to
Yeah,
the dentist.
very vivid, yeah. So it's kind of
I love my dentist.
very good, myself as well. So it's kind of thinking about that, like what do people value and how do you respect their differences?
Yes.
And so that brings us to number 2. Don't play by the golden rule.
That's a good one. And a lot of people shake their head and say, what?
Yeah,
I've
what do
been
you
taught
mean?
all my life to play by the
Yes.
golden rule. So the golden rule is treat others as you wish them to treat you.
Right.
What if I want to be treated differently than you?
Yes.
So for instance, in giving out rewards in the workplace, some people love to be rewarded publicly. Kim did a great job today, everyone. Let's give her a round of applause. Other people can't stand that.
Right.
They'd rather have their reward in a nice email, thank you
Yes.
for the good job, or in a closed door atmosphere.
Right.
So it's important not to think of what I want and therefore you must want that. But I want this, I wonder if Kim wants the same thing or something different.
Right.
And that's what we mean by don't play by the golden rule.
Right. Everyone has a different style. I worked with one woman, and she was an intern, and she would say, well, I really need positive feedback. Before you give me constructive criticism, it needs to start with a positive. Well, I was, oh, absolutely. Wouldn't every manager love to be like that? And as we kind of marketed her out to get a job in the competitive environment, we would talk to, whenever I gave a reference, I would explain that. And I said, some days people would be at my door and I'd say, oh, by the way, you need to do this because, you know, this A, B, C, and D. And she'd say, Kim, and I'd say, well, excellent job thus far, but I've suggested these changes. And she had to hear that. And that was extremely important to her because it reminded her of different things in the past. So that was a critical thing I needed to learn. And then she was this tremendous employee, but if I forgot, she could gently remind me, like, start off with the positive. And I had that positive there, just sometimes I had 3 more people and the phone ringing that I didn't always do that. But for her, that was a critical piece.
Excellent, good.
So that is really, I think, what brings us to number 3 is don't stereotype people.
First of all, I think people have to understand what the word stereotype means. Stereotype means basically, based on our experience with one person who is of a particular demographic, we assume everyone else is like him or her. So if I have a bad experience with a woman, then I'm going to assume all women are like that.
Right.
If I have bad experience with a very heavy person, then I'm going to assume all heavy people are like that.
Right.
These are stereotypes we walk around with all the times in our lives. And the biggest job we have is to recognize that we have them. We all have biases, we're human
Yes.
beings, but how do I act on them? What do I do about the fact that I have these stereotypes? And am I willing to challenge myself to look at them,
Right.
to break them?
Right. How do we break them down? A lot here at Employment for All, we talk about the stigma experienced by individuals who experience psychiatric disability. And a lot of people have a belief that people who experience mental illness don't want to work and choose not to work, which the reverse couldn't be more true. You know, the reverse couldn't be more true, is that you really need to think about, almost everyone wants to work. They want to participate in some way, but they need the right supports. And that's the motto here at Employment for All, is that everyone can be successful with the right supports. So it's reversing that belief and helping people see that, wow, everyone can work. It's just how do we support them in getting the right job match for them.
Absolutely. I think stereotypes and not looking at our stereotypes is one of the most dangerous things that we do in the workplace.
Right.
And they have to be examined.
Right, because we definitely have a belief, and there are all funny jokes around them, and a grain of them can be true, but it's just realizing they're not universal, and how do we take that down? And it's getting to know people and getting beyond that.
That's right.
So that's
right.
critical. And that really goes hand in hand with number 4, don't be judgmental.
That is so tough.
That is a tough one.
We're all judgmental.
Yes, we make judgments throughout the day, throughout our
Constantly.
life.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's how we act on it. Do I judge you, Kim, because you have blonde hair, and I don't like blondes,
Right.
so I'm going to make a lot of judgments about who you are because you have blonde hair.
Right.
based on nothing except that a stereotype of who you are having blonde hair. So again, it isn't that we can't have judgments. Judgments get us through life.
Yes, if we couldn't make critical judgments, we wouldn't know whether to take a right on a red.
Right,
You know?
or to cross the street now, or do I wait till the light turns green?
Exactly.
But it's looking at those judgments and understanding why I'm making a judgment about you, and is it a correct judgment or not? One that has to be checked out.
Absolutely. And it's kind of testing those. Okay, I have this assumption about this individual. Is it true? And not treating someone based on that stereotype or based on that judgment that you made, not
That's
the
right.
performance that they've done.
I think in the workplace, an excellent example of judging people is what we do sometimes to people in front line. Receptionists,
Yes.
staff assistants, those sorts of, that's their job. We judge that they can do that. They can't do other quote-unquote higher level things, and we keep them in a box.
Yes.
And what we have to do is give them opportunities to see what they can do,
Yes.
as opposed to judging what they can't do and keep them there.
Absolutely. So finding ways to help people open doors, to open possibilities, to see what they can do in jobs, and really looking at their transferable skills to say, well, what's your next step? What are you looking to do? Where's your career advancement? We all need to, sometimes we judge ourselves and we keep ourselves in a box. Well, what other things we can do? Those are key things as
Absolutely.
people think about the workplace.
Yes.
Informational interviews can be a great way to get out of that box, talking with people about who do jobs that you're interested in to learn more about, well, maybe I could do that job. It's actually astounding how many legal secretaries become lawyers because growing up they heard the message women couldn't be lawyers, or oh, I'm not smart enough to be a lawyer, or they internalized that. Then they realized they became a legal secretary because they loved that field, and they realized, well, I could do this, I could do that, I could do that. And they become lawyers, and they're supported usually financially as well. So it's very interesting when I often have helped a lot of people become lawyers because they learn to be a legal secretary, and then they learn more and more and more skills, and then they become a lawyer because you can learn, you know,
Sure.
if you can type 60 words per minute, you can become a legal secretary. So if that's truly your goal, go in a different route. Don't go the traditional route. So helping people break down both the stereotypes that they have of what a lawyer is or who they are and their judgments both imposed by others and themselves.
And the messages, how they're judging their
Exactly.
messages. You know, it's
Exactly.
interesting you say that, Kim, because in the field of dentistry, which traditionally was a very male
Yes.
field, there are now more women in dental schools in this country than men are.
Wow.
And part of it's because women finally learned, gee, I don't have to only be a dental assistant or hygienist.
Yes.
I can go and become a dentist if I want to.
Yeah.
So it's really changing some of those mental images, changing the judgment on what I can and cannot do.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's very interesting to see, yeah, when did you get these messages? Who, and do you have to keep that belief?
Right.
And you get to choose that and examine that.
That's right.
So let's get a little bit more in depth. Tell us a little bit more if we break these down into different parts.
Okay, if we break down emotional intelligence
Yes.
into different parts, I think one wonderful way to look at it, and it's a model that I've gotten from some fantastic people in Los Angeles, Lee Gardenswartz and Anita Rowe, is to look at emotional intelligence and diversity having 4 discrete parts. The first one, fancy name, affirmative introspection.
Okay.
What it really means is looking at yourself. What do I believe? Who am I? What are my messages? What gets me angry? What gets me sad? Without judging.
Okay.
Second, once I know that, how do I govern myself, self-governance? How do I manage my thoughts and my feelings and how they play out in my behavior?
Okay.
So we have those 2 parts about me, the internal person first.
Okay.
Then we move out into you, the rest of the world. I know about me now. What is it I need to find out about people from other cultures? We're all from different cultures. So intercultural literacy. How do I find out why you like vanilla ice cream and I like strawberry ice cream? Or why you like to work late at night and I like to work early in the morning? So if you're trying to figure out how our cultures shape that type of behavior, and then finally what we call social architecting, another fancy term, which is really, what do I do by my behavior to help people connect and feel productive in the workplace? Once I know about my emotions, how I act with other people, I understand some cultural values of theirs, how do I help bring this all together?
Okay. Well, I think a nice example of that is, of social architecting, is we often honor people's birthdays at BU. But we don't only give cake. We ask people throughout the year, well, what do you like? What's of interest to you? What, you know, how do you like to celebrate? One woman is celiac, so we either give her flowers or balloons. Or one person doesn't like to eat sweets, so we chopped up pears. Pears were her favorite, and we chopped that up. And people feel it's such a simple thing. I mean, a couple pears, maybe $1.50, $2, cut them all up. Everyone enjoys them, shares them together. But it's just honoring the person where they're at. And it could be, we've done cultural, different things that people have liked for their birthday, but it's taking that next step to figure out, well, what's important to you? We also do that around holidays. Everyone brings their favorite ethnic dish and or their favorite vegetarian dish or their favorite thing that they made to share a little piece of themselves so that everyone feels kind of respected and acknowledged.
It's interesting, Kim, because you think of birthdays. Everyone loves birthdays, right?
Woo!
But I used to work with a woman who liked her birthday, but did not like acknowledging it at work.
Oh, okay.
And so after the first year of her working with us, she said, you know, I really would rather you don't acknowledge my birthday. It makes me uncomfortable. I don't like the attention. When that day comes, I know I'm going to get a card or a cake. I feel like calling in sick.
Wow.
And I said, thank you for telling us that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It made her feel better about that day, coming in overall. And that's part of creating the architecture, the place you want to work as well.
Right. And it really, you learn about yourself. You can better interact with other people. I know when I get sick, I don't feel well, and I have to have a tremendous amount of patience in my job. And I know when I don't feel well, that patience is severely diminished. So I know I have to limit my contact with people or stay home, because people expect that level of patience where I can ask those questions and have that extended time. And I know when I'm sick, I don't have that. I don't have those internal reserves. So it's finding out what you know about the person and how you interact with the other people.
Absolutely, yes.
So it's critical to break those things down and to really know both about what your limitations are and also what the other person's limitations are.
That's right. I think if we can do this work with each other, it really creates an atmosphere where more people want to be part of it and are more productive and do better work.
Absolutely. When your individuality is valued and you're also taught how to interact better with other people, it's a win-win. Everyone's more productive. You look forward to going to work, and if you're happy at work, you're going to be more successful at work.
Absolutely, yes.
So let's break down diversity a little bit more for people.
Diversity is a tough one to break down. It's such a big word. It has so many different meanings. But diversity basically is about the differences and similarities of human beings. What I like, what I dislike versus what you like, what you dislike, and how those either clash or how they come together. So for instance, diversity can be the big issues we tend to think about: race, gender expression, sexual orientation. Those are important to spend time on, to look at, and to know about. But there are other parts of diversity as well, such as, is someone a manager or not a manager? Is someone working at the main campus or far, far away? And all of these things play into things like promotions, committee work, who gets noticed, who doesn't get noticed. And so diversity is very, very broad and more multifaceted than we tend to think it is.
Terrific, terrific. So you've given us a lot of wonderful things to think about, Robert, in terms of diversity, and we hope to have you on again and continue the discussion around what are the important things around diversity and why is it so important? Because it is true, when you learn more about yourself and you learn more about other people, then the whole dynamic really makes it much more satisfying for everyone involved, because you feel valued and you really feel like you're a valued part, and you can also be a valuable part of one another, so to create a powerful community.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much, Robert Emilio. We appreciate you being on Employment for All. And I'd like to say thank you very much to our audience today of Employment for All for being part of our discussion, for being part of our learning community. And I'd like you to remember to look out for anyone who might be in need of your support, because we feel here at Employment for All that everyone can be successful with the right supports, and it just might be you who could make that critical difference in someone's lives. So this is Kim Bissett saying thank you very much, and we'll talk to you soon.